I'll probably be considered something I'm not for saying this. But what research is being used for which purposes? I've done a little bit of research, and apparently, I don't know, it was something like African Americans have different bone density or length, bone length, than Caucasians, and etc. So is that being, I don't know, is this the right word, extrapolated, but applied to ancient origins? Because, once again, it could be called something. But if slave owners or plantation owners or whatever took the biggest people to be their slaves, would then that not create a genetic predisposition to having longer limbs, which might create the appearance of evidence to say Africans have longer femurs or have longer tibias, or I don't know what the bones in the arms are called. I was trying to think of that, but I can't right now. Compared to this or that. Now, is that being applied to ancient or archaic origins to say, well, this is what we have in America, so this is how things always were? And is America really a formation of a British colony to say this is the way things are, and are the British really still running the world through America? Is America like a proxy for British control? Now, I'm saying a lot of things here, but I'm just thinking out loud, right? So you can look up, what is it called? Anyways, I use Google Scholar to try to figure out, I think I typed in Cheddarman Reconstruction methodology, and it was maybe the fourth result or something, and there's a paper basically written that talks about facial reconstruction. And that leads me back to like cranial size and scientific racism. Now, is there a new type of scientific racism to say these bone sizes and densities determine what these ancient or archaic skeletons are? Is that not just a recurrence of scientific racism? And if it applies to support your ego, it's okay. If, I don't even like using these terms because I don't really agree with race, but if a Caucasian comes up with a scientific explanation to provide support for their ego, that's racism. But if science dictates the supporting of African ego, that's okay? Because I've heard a lot of things. Oh, you need to stop with your Eurocentric view. You need to stop with what you believe, or you know, like what you think. I'm just thinking out loud. So I don't really necessarily have an opinion here. I'm just thinking out loud. Is the size of a skeleton furthering of scientific racism? And if, regardless of that, if it supports, and see, I don't even like these terms, but if it supports African ego, because I've been told I'm just supporting my European ego, so I'm just responding in turn. If it supports African ego, it's okay. If, because I'm hearing a lot of things from people that I guess are African because of Johann Blumenbach's classification, which people are apparently fighting but also accepting when it serves their ego. to serve their purposes, it's okay. So I don't necessarily know or think that these furtherings of race through scientific evidence is any different than the other scientific racism. Now, there are new ways to explain or give respect to what's been found. Well, you can't deny genetics. You can't deny what experts say. Well, at one point the experts were saying cranial size this, and some people are smarter than others, and some people are inferior and superior. Well, now I'm hearing things like, I'm an African, and you're a European, and if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't exist. And if it wasn't for all the things I did, you wouldn't have anything. And you can tell me, I'm not saying you're inferior. I'm not saying I'm superior. But if you're going to say you're the original this, you're original that, if it wasn't for you, there wouldn't be me. And then using science to provide evidence of that, I don't see how you're any different than, what was it, 1773, the early 1800s, the creation of race and the continuation of applying a theory to strengthen the ego of a person. We can say, I am this race. We can say, I am this nationality. We can say, I am this culture. We can say, I am from this region. What's with all the groupthink? People are tribal, communal. They find something that supports their opinion. Then they find people who circulate this opinion. Then they create mass opinion, and that equals truth. I've heard arguments that science is a matter of manipulating circumstance. And I've heard that anthropology or archaeology is conjecture, but genetics isn't. Now, how do we know we're interpreting the data correctly? Now you're going to say, the experts say so. Well, scientific method seems to be a way to create fact. I use the scientific method to say I didn't misinterpret. What is it, like, I don't really remember, but something about a hypothesis, an observation, a process, and you're supposed to record it all, and then peer review comes in and someone replicates it. Now, once again, I have said this somewhere else, but I might sound conspiratorial, a conspiracy theorist. I like to think of it as alternative opinion. It's not a fact, an alternative idea. If people have been shaping society through manipulating circumstance, why couldn't science be manipulated? Now you're going to say, well, the experts. Right, okay. Maybe these things are true. But maybe that's just the interpretation of the data. Now, I suppose I have to become an expert to challenge these things. Because if I'm not an expert, people are going to discredit what I have to say. So, the question remains. Is attributing pretty much recent ideas to ancient skeletons scientific racism?